Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Tonight, one of the busiest weeks for travel kicks off with thousands of airline delays and cancellations. The president's One Big Beautiful Bill inches towards Senate approval, and the scare for Beyonce that brought her show to a halt. We begin with what could be the busiest holiday travel week in 15 years. Some of the major carriers are struggling to get back on schedule after days of delays and cancellations. Making matters worse, multiple tornadoes in the upper Midwest, where a new round of severe storms could impact travel, and how much drivers will pay for gas. Our team is covering it all. The Senate's marathon session narrowly advances President Trump's mega bill. Democrats forcing clerks to read the entire bill, nearly 1,000 pages, what it means for taxes and which programs are being cut. Republican leaders are scrambling to win votes for final passage, and new drama as a key Republican critic of the bill says he will not run for re-election. Also tonight, protests over a planned migrant detention center in the Florida Everglades that's nicknamed Alligator Alcatraz by environmentalists, and Native Americans are teaming up to fight the project. New satellite photos show workers returning to Iran's Fordo nuclear site. A top official weighs in on how soon Iran can return to enriching uranium. President Trump prepares to meet with top Israeli officials while demanding an end to the war in Gaza. A devastating scene outside Philadelphia. A deadly explosion tears 3 homes apart. A terrifying malfunction as Beyonce performed in her hometown. The car she was riding in began to tilt at a sharp angle high above the crowd. How that midair scare came to an end. Dramatic video captures a woman sliding off of a drawbridge in Miami. Americans on parade at Wimbledon 35 are set to compete at the All England Club. What organizers are doing to try to keep the players safe in the summer heat. And celebrations from coast to coast. Pride is on display across the country.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Of substantially all the assets of the taxpayer, including a Title 11 or similar case, a cessation of businesses by the taxpayer in the case of C Corporation or any similar circumstance, and the unpaid portion of all remaining installments shall be due on the date of such event, or in the case of a Title 11 or similar case, the day before the petition is filed. The preceding sentence shall not apply to the sale of substantially all the assets of a taxpayer to a buyer, and such buyer enters into an agreement with the Secretary under which such buyer is liable for the remaining installments due under this subsection in the same manner as if such buyer were the taxpayer. 3. Proration of deficiency to installments. If an election is made under subsection A to pay the applicable net tax liability installments and a deficiency has been assessed with respect to such applicable net tax liability, the deficiency shall be prorated to the installments payable under subsection A. A part of the deficiency, if so prorated to any installment, the date for payment of which has not arrived, shall be collected at the same time as part of such installment. The part of the deficiency so prorated to any installment, the date for payment of which has arrived, shall be paid upon the notice and demand from the Secretary. This section shall not apply if the deficiency is due to negligence, to intentional disregard of rules and regulations, or to fraud with intent to evade tax. C. Election. 1. In general, any election under subsection A shall be made not later than the due date for the return of the tax for the taxable year described in subsection A. 2. Partnerships and S corporations. In the case of a sale or exchange described in subsection A by a partnership or S corporation, the election under subsection A shall be made at the partner or shareholder level. The Secretary may prescribe such regulations or other guidance as necessary to carry out the purposes of this paragraph. D. Definitions. For purposes of this section. 1. Applicable net tax liability. A. In general, the applicable net tax liability with respect to the sale or exchange of any property described in subsection A is the excess of, if any, of 1. Such taxpayer's net income tax for the taxable year, or 2. Such taxpayer's net income tax for such taxable year determined without regard to any gain recognized from the sale or exchange of such property. B. Net income tax. The term net income tax being the regular tax liability reduced by the credits allowed under subparts A, B, and D of Part 4 of Subchapter A. 2. Qualified farmland property. A. In general, the term qualified farmland property means real property located in the United States, one which 1. Has been used by the taxpayer as a farm for farming purposes, or 2. Leased by the taxpayer to a qualified farm for farming purposes during substantially all of the 10-year period ending on the date of the qualified sale or exchange, and 2. Which is subject to a covenant or
The 51st state rhetoric has returned this Sunday night, while the U.S. president is once again saying his country should annex Canada.
It really should, because Canada relies entirely on the United States.
And the new false claims Trump is making about Canada. Turbulence at Vancouver International Airport. What caused chaos for travelers and dozens of delays? A prescription to fill the shortage of family physicians.
I need a doctor now.
One province's remedy to recruit overseas, and what else the solution needs. Plus, unconditional love and support.
I got your back.
This father's exceptional pride for his trans children.
Global National, reporting tonight, Ann Gaviola.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us. Canada is bracing for a new round of tension with the U.S. as a long-simmering trade dispute heats up. Tomorrow, Ottawa's digital services tax kicks in, and it's struck a nerve south of the border. Today, U.S. President Donald Trump doubled down on his assertion that trade talks are over with Canada until certain taxes are scrapped. And he's reviving an old threat. Mackenzie Gray reports.
Frankly, Canada should be the 51st state. Okay, it really should.
In Idaho, officials say breaking news tonight, firefighters under attack in Idaho, saying an active shooter situation is happening in Coeur d'Alene. At least 2 people dead, multiple others shot while responding. A shelter-in-place order now in effect. We've got the latest on this late-breaking story. Here in Washington, the Senate set for an all-nighter debate over what President Trump calls his big, beautiful bill. What's been added to get more people on board, what it means for you, your taxes, your health care, and why one Republican's surprise announcement could put a Trump in the Senate next election. Dangerous weather battering the country. More than a dozen reported tornadoes in plains. Flash floods, look at that, in Atlanta. And in Phoenix, this family of hikers rescued from heat exhaustion. The jury in the Diddy trial set to get the case tomorrow. What to watch for with Sean Combs' freedom on the line. Roads on runways may be coming soon to an airport near you to help make your flight safer and more efficient.
This is NBC Nightly News with Hallie Jackson.
Good Sunday evening. We begin tonight with a dangerous and very active situation unfolding near
Tonight, it's big, but it's you 14 pages read at Democrats' insistence.
Section 4Z aided. I'm calling on Capitol Residence Bill encounters internal resistance. Why one GOP lawmaker is calling it quits.
Also tonight, Iran after the attack. Nuclear power or not.
I'm just tired in Tehran, where life is still.
What's it for your 4th of July?
I'm meteorologist Andrew Kozak, tracking severe storms tonight, a new tropical storm forms in the Gulf, and a look at your holiday forecast.
Plus, a lift for LA. Emily's Preston in Los Angeles, where the Getty Villa Museum has reopened, bringing a welcome revival to the community nearly 6 months after the devastating Palisades wildfire. And later, what a hoot! CBS's Itai Hodge shows us why this San Francisco neighborhood is suddenly drawing crowds.
What do you make of all of it?
I think it's wonderful.
This is the CBS Weekend News from New York with Jerika Duncan.
Tonight on PBS News Weekend, 3 years after the Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade, a decades-old grassroots movement is exploring new ways to circumvent state laws restricting or banning access to abortions. Then a former head of the FDA on his new book exploring the risks, rewards, and science behind weight loss drugs. And the life story of opera singer Pretty Yende, considered one of her generation's most accomplished and charismatic sopranos.
I always say that my journey is extraordinary in a sense that it's opportunity that met time and a gift.
Major. This is Asia
Asia now.
It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Rani Samtani. At this hour, Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawat's government on the brink. The Constitutional Court could potentially rule to suspend the leader from office amid growing calls for her resignation. Hong Kong's last remaining opposition party has disbanded as the city marks 5 years since China's sweeping national security law came into force. And U.S. President Donald Trump says he has no plans to extend his tariff deadline, giving countries just 10 days to secure lightning trade.
Hello and a very warm welcome to you. You're watching Daybreak here on France 24. These are the headlines. Over 80% of France, 2/3 of Portugal, across southern Europe, warnings of a heat wave in place. A number of fires breaking out and schools closing as a precaution. Lockdown lifted as police find the body of an armed man, the suspect in Idaho, in the killing of 2 firefighters ambushed as firefighters responded in the north of the state. And Israel once again tells Gazans to evacuate large areas of the region. The bombings continuing as the corruption trial of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gets postponed once again, and Donald Trump says it should be scrapped entirely, calling for a deal on Gaza to be reached. Glad to join us. Well, also coming up, our focus report will be looking at how India is investing millions in seaweed, seeing it as a crop of the future used for food, fertilizer, and even to make leather.
And you're very welcome to Britain's News Channel. Good morning to you. Question, is the Prime Minister losing control of his MPs?
Up to 50 Labour backbenchers threaten to rebel against tomorrow's welfare bill. That's despite the government making significant concessions.
Dozens more could exploit the situation to mount a protest against the inheritance tax on farms.
After a series of policy reversals, is the Prime Minister's grip on power slipping away?
Glastonbury has come to a close, but the controversy rumbles on as the police assess a performer's chance of death to the Israeli military.
A heatwave is in full force as Britain is set to be hotter than Barbados today.
Donald Trump has sat down in one of his most honest interviews since the election, but with a matter of days until his controversial tariffs are due to resume, is a storm brewing.
Prince William gives an update on his initiative to end homelessness. We find out what's in store for Homewood's future.
And could it be the hottest start to Wimbledon ever? Crowds are making their way to the world's oldest tennis tournament as we speak, and we'll be talking to some of those who are in the queues.
And in sport this morning, Wimbledon. Wimbledon begins. We've got the most Britons playing in English years since 1984. The Lionesses have scored 7 goals in their final warm-up game before the Euros, and Chris Eubank Jr. against Conor Benn. The rematch is on.
There's a northwest-southeast split with our weather over the next 24 hours, with temperatures rising across the southeast. Find out how high they'll go later on with me.
Hello there, very good morning to you on this Monday morning. You're starting your day and your week with us, and I'm Eamon Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. Israel has issued evacuation orders for northern Gaza, warning it's preparing for a new offensive. The Israeli military is also stepping up airstrikes in the territory. Gaza's civil defense agency said at least 23 people have been killed in the last day. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insists his forces will succeed in eliminating Hamas and freeing the remaining hostages. The International Atomic Energy Agency says Iran could resume enriching uranium within months. And its boss, Rafael Grossi, has contradicted Donald Trump's claims that last 20 raids obliterated Iran's nuclear program. The Iranian parliament has suspended its cooperation with the UN agencies since the strikes. Police are investigating 2 music groups for allegedly inciting hatred against Israel at Europe's biggest music festival, Glastonbury, in Western England. Irish rappers Kneecap condemned Israel's actions in Gaza. The punk duo Bob Villain led chants of death to the IDF. Festival organizers said they were appalled by the anti-Israeli rhetoric. This is DW News coming to you from Berlin. You can find lots more news on our website, dw.com.
Today, Israel orders evacuations and ramps up operations in northern Gaza as the US president renews his push for a ceasefire. The judge in mushroom cook Erin Patterson's triple murder trial finishes giving his final instructions to the jury. One of Australia's largest health insurers admits to misleading and deceptive conduct of tens of millions of dollars worth of incorrectly rejected claims. Residents along the New South Wales coast brace themselves for wild weather. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Catherine Robinson. Israel has issued mass evacuation warnings for people in northern Gaza before its military intensifies fighting against Hamas. It comes as the US President Donald Trump lobbies for a ceasefire deal to end the 20-month war. Palestinians are again mourning the dead from an Israeli airstrike that hit a tent camp in the besieged Strip. Gazan authorities say dozens of people have been killed in a series of Israeli attacks over the weekend. Residents of Gaza City and Jabalia are now being told to move south, with the Israeli military flagging it will step up and expand its operations westward. Gazans say nowhere is safe.
A month ago, they told
Hello, good morning. It's 6 o'clock. The heat is on. We could be heading for one of the hottest June days on record.
Plus, the government will reveal concessions on welfare reforms today as the Prime Minister battles to stave off a Labour revolt.
It's Monday, the 30th of June. Now a heat bomb explodes in Europe and some parts of the UK could see a sweltering 34 degrees today. Elsewhere, Keir Starmer makes a final effort to convince MPs to back his welfare reforms. We have a special report on how a brutal murder exposed a South African robbery gang accused of targeting dozens of women.
I cry a lot when I'm alone. Most of the time, it's painful.
In the United States, 2 firefighters are shot dead by a sniper who ambushed them while they were responding to a blaze. And of course in sport, it's the first day of Wimbledon. Emma Raducanu is in action a bit later.
African news. The news. The sanctions, which include restrictions on U.S. exports, arms sales and financial assistance to Sudan, will stay in place for at least a year. Only humanitarian assistance will not be affected by the sanctions. Sudan's army leader, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and his former deputy and RSF chief, Mohamed Dagalo, are already sanctioned by the U.S. The latest embargoes were prompted by allegations of chemical weapons used by Sudan's military in operations against RSF fighters. Citing anonymous U.S. officials, the New York Times reported in January that government soldiers deployed chlorine gas known to cause severe respiratory pain and death. Sudanese officials denied the accusation. A power struggle between Sudan's army rulers in 2023 plunged the country into a brutal civil war which has killed tens of thousands. The conflict left 13 million people, creating what the United Nations describes as the world's worst humanitarian crisis. The withdrawal from the national dialogue by the Democratic Alliance is the latest instability to rock South Africa's coalition government, which has just marked its first anniversary. Tension started when President Cyril Ramaphosa fired a deputy minister from the DA over unauthorized travel. The DA responded by asking Ramaphosa to fire 3 ANC ministers facing corruption allegations in 48 hours or face consequences. On Friday, South Africa's presidency dismissed the DA's call as threats and ultimatums that would not bother the president. Following last year's general election, where the ANC lost its parliamentary majority, it was forced to team up with the DA to form a ruling coalition. The two parties have, however, clashed over the budget and policies to empower South Africa's black majority. The National Dialogue is an initiative started by Ramaphosa last month to unite the country to address issues such as unemployment and crime. Egypt's Foreign Affairs Minister has condemned Israel's unprovoked attacks on Iran. But Abdelaziz made the result of a meeting with Austrian counterpart in Cairo Saturday. He also spoke of the need to sustain a ceasefire reached between Tel Aviv and Tehran. We also talked about the latest escalation related to Iran's nuclear program, and we condemned the Israeli aggression against the Iranian nuclear facilities. And we're now working on emphasizing the importance of sustaining the current ceasefire, and this requires us to work quickly on resuming the talks between the Iranian and American sides.
يتطلب منا العمل بسرعة على استئناف المباحثات بين الجانبين الإيراني والأمريكي.
On June 13th, Israel started bombing Iran's nuclear facilities and assassinated top military figures and scientists. Later, the US also carried out bombing raids. A spokesperson for Iran's judiciary in a post on the agency's official website said that those killed in the attack on Monday included staff, soldiers, prisoners, and members of visiting families. It remains unclear why Israel targeted the prison. The spokesman for the judiciary said 71 people have been martyred so far in the attack by the Zionists on Evin prison. Mr. Jahangir added that in addition to prison officials, the martyrs include conscripts, inmates, and their families. The neighbors of the prison have also suffered a lot of damage. He said, unfortunately, a large number of people have been injured too. Some were treated on site, and others have been hospitalized. The June 23rd attack, the day before the ceasefire between Israel and Iran took hold, hit several prison buildings and prompted concerns from right groups about the safety of the inmates. Monaco confirmed the news on the club website and in a video posted on X with the 32-year-old Pogba in the club's red and white jersey. The transfer gives Pogba a platform to redeem a career set back by injuries and the doping ban. Monaco finished third in the Ligue 1. Despite being French, Pogba has never played in the top flight in his country. After earning his technique at Le Havre's academy, he signed with Manchester United at age 16 in 2009. Pogba made more headlines in recent years with his off-field problems. After testing positive for testosterone in 2023, he was handed the maximum punishment by Italy's anti-doping court. He said his use of the supplement was unintentional. Last year, Juventus cancelled his contract. Monaco was also set to announce Barcelona's Ansu Fati on Sunday.
Thank you very much for giving time to Amir Shackle 5858. I am Amir Shackle. Have a good life. Bye-bye.